Hey, good morning and welcome to the fourth hour of the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to be with you again. Thank you so much for dialing me up. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's see what's going on this morning. Um, I've been I saw this earlier this morning. I didn't talk about it during the program this morning, but and I thought, well, let's talk about it here. This is this is a story at USA Today. Actually, it's showing up at a number of places. Here it is. A historian who predicted 9 of the last 10 election results says Democrats. Excuse me. I don't think that's the right piece. I don't think that's the one I wanted, actually. The, well, my apologies. I get this all set up and no, it's, it's not the right one. I'll get you the reaction because that one I know I have. So let's pull that up. I've got to get better at this. Okay. This is the election Nostradamus predicting a Kamala victory. And it is Alan Lichtman is his name. And this guy has predicted so many of the previous elections correctly. And this is the guy that we go to. And USA Today was reporting yesterday that Kamala Harris, that's it. Kamala Harris is going to win the election. This is what he's saying. And so he came up with the keys to the White House model, and it has allowed him to accurately predict the election results then of every election since 1984. Now we're talking about presidential elections. So he revealed yesterday that Kamala Harris will be the winner. He did an op-ed for the New York Times. It was a video. And he said the Democrats will hold on to the White House. Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States. At least that's my prediction for this race. And it's amazing to watch the legacy media. Oh, this guy is right so often. And of course, now he's predicting Kamala Harris. So that's very much the issue. So he looks at certain elements. He said, party mandate. After the midterm elections, the incumbent party holds more seats in the House of Representatives than it did after the previous midterm elections. And then he rates these. Is it true, false? And based on the number of trues, so Lichtman is doing this. So this is pretty funny because I think this is a Matt Margolis piece, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's Matt Margolis at PJ Media. He says, earlier this year, Lichtman's model predicted that Joe Biden would win re-election too. We all know how that turned out. Yeah. But even more damning for Lichtman is the fact that he predicted that the Trump-Biden debate would have no impact on the election. Well, as you and I know, it had a dramatic impact on the election because the debate Democrats wound up forcing him out. They wanted him out. They wanted Kamala Harris to run instead. And Lichtman said debates are not predictive of outcomes. Hillary Clinton won all 3 debates, still lost. John Kerry won all of the debates. Oh, he did. He says still lost. Barack Obama got trounced 72 to 20% in the poll, worse than Biden, and went on to win, he says. That's why he relies on the 13 keys. But he says Lichtman's model may be a solid prediction model, but the problem is that many of the keys are subjective. And yeah, frankly, his assessment is garbage, says Matt Margolis over at PJ Media. So the legacy media is making a lot of this. Again, the story with Alan Lichtman was, I saw it at USA Today, but it was a number of other publications that had also had shared it, and it's like a little bit condescending, I think. Just looking at comments here, forgive me as we go along. I'm trying to get used. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get used to this setup and being, taking a look at your comments to see if anybody's got anything that I want to make certain that I highlight and share with you. So trying to keep an eye on that, trying to pull up these news stories for you to take a look at as well. So let me close those windows, make things a little easier on myself. All right, other news that I also wanted to share with you this morning. I found this story interesting. Let's take a look at this. This is a piece today at USA Today. Torn 20 voters still on the fence will decide if Trump or Harris prevails. So this piece goes on to say, I bet you know where most of your family, friends, and coworkers stand on the choice between the disastrous and the unpalatable this November. And I will let you decide who's who, he writes. But not everyone is taking a stand. People always ask me questions like, how could anyone still be undecided? With RFK Jr. out of the presidential race, why would people still vote for a third-party candidate? Are there voters still torn between Harris and Trump? Interesting questions, I thought. This is why this caught my eye. So then he goes to the USA Today's Suffolk University national poll of likely voters, and they asked these questions, which I found interesting. We asked third-party and undecided voters what was holding them back from voting for Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris. And this is interesting. We found a segment of the population with only 2 months until Election Day is still either undecided or selecting third-party candidates as both their first and second choice. That's nearly twice as large as the current margin separating Harris and Trump. So you've got a number of people that are still there going third-party candidates. Are there any third-party candidates out there that are not completely, unhinged? I don't know that there are. USA Today's Washington bureau chief, Susan Page, summarized the data well. Likely voters are holding back from Harris largely because they don't know enough about her, and those same voters are holding back from Trump because they know too much about him. So I don't know if any of that is true. So Steve's always got some great comments. I want to share these with you. Let me stop that. There we go. Steve, if someone tells you they are undecided, they're lying. They will vote for the candidate you are not. They will vote for the candidate you are not voting for. They just don't want to tell you that. Interesting. Steve, thank you. I appreciate that very much. It's it'll be telling. But I found that piece kind of interesting. Let's take a look at what else I've got I wanted to share here with you this morning. I pulled up a number of Donald Trump is out there. He's been making some comments that I also wanted to share. This is a piece from Newsmax where Trump accused Vice President Kamala Harris then of, and I have this in the stack of stuff this morning and I didn't share it. He said, Comrade Kamala Harris and her Department of Justice are trying to interfere in and suppress the election in favor of Democrats by resurrecting the Russia hoax and trying to say that Russia is trying to help me, which is absolutely false, Trump said. This was a social media post. He said, in fact, President Putin would much rather see Comrade Kamala Harris in office, as he strongly said just this morning, Trump said. This was yesterday, because that story about Putin and suggesting Kamala Harris, that was trending this morning. So Putin saying he would rather see Kamala Harris in office, Donald Trump says. And he said that Harris had an infectious laugh, which is, yeah, it's like my laugh. No, my laugh is not infectious. No, I'm afraid it's not. I wish it were. There we go. All right. Also this morning, and this is stuff I didn't share during the show this morning. I want to follow up a little bit more on Donald Trump. Here we go. Donald Trump promising to revive the American dream with housing for young families. Here we go. I think it's really smart of Donald Trump to be focusing on housing, and it's smart to be focusing on young Americans. That's really where the election's going to be at. How are younger Americans going to vote? I think those of us who are older have already made up our minds one way or the other. But Trump, during he was talking to a room full of business elites and billionaires at the Economic Club of New York. He said it's all about the American dream. We will make housing much more affordable. We will get mortgage rates back down to 3%, so young people will be able to buy a home again and be part of the American dream, he said. Millions of people will take part in reviving the American dream. He said it's all about the American dream. We talk about this with these Democratic people in office. He said they don't want to talk about the American dream because they are the exact opposite, Trump said. So what did he mean there? See, and this is where Trump, refers to somebody, and I was talking about this a little bit yesterday. I wish he would, he's got to, I wonder if he just grows tired of articulating, a lot of the same things over and over again. But I think he's got to do that. He's got to, was he talking about, specifically, what does he mean? Articulate that so that people understand exactly what it is he's trying to point out. Trump also promised to reduce costs by excluding illegals from the housing market. He said, we can't ignore the impact of the flood of 21 million illegal aliens has had in driving up housing costs. That's why my plan will ban mortgages for illegal aliens, he said. So the Trump war room has been out there. If you're on X and you want to know what Trump and team is saying, Trump war room. And then now we're getting into these are other comments then from others responding to what Donald Trump is saying. Also, let's get the latest here on what happened, because you had the high school shooting suspect from Georgia who was in court this morning. He was in court this morning, immediately followed by his father. The two of them were both in court. And the Georgia Bureau of Investigation said that Gray had been charged with 4 counts of felony murder. And the judge saying, I want to make you aware that the maximum penalty for felony murder, so for each count, the maximum penalty is that you could be punishable by death, by imprisonment for life without parole, or by imprisonment for life with the possibility of parole. Can you imagine being 14 years old and standing in front of a, you know, um, judge, and this is what he's saying. Man, your life is just absolutely over, regardless of any of these. So, you know, punishable by death, life without parole, or life with the possibility of parole. I mean, that it would imagine that. Absolutely incredible. So he was in court this morning, and immediately following that, his father. So, and then the judge walked back that statement and announced the maximum penalty does not include the death penalty. So, I wondered about that when I saw it, because he's 14 years old and the Supreme Court has ruled on that issue that you can't be sentencing 14-year-olds to, to life in prison, or excuse me, the death penalty. Then at that age, they've got to be given some opportunity then to be able to, if there is parole at some point, when might that be? And with somebody that young, that's I think a big question. So I had an email. I wanted to share a couple of emails. No, you're not going to see them. I'm just going to read these to you. But got an email from Tom as we're talking about the school shooting. He said, many of your callers touched on issues that could have contributed to this tragedy. One thing that has been overlooked, in my opinion, is the spiritual bankruptcy that we as a society are experiencing, being taught that there is nothing beyond this life and experiencing abuse and bullying, not to mention seeing the glorified livelihood of thugs and criminals. It's not surprising that shootings are increasing, Tom said. And then Kurt sent me an email. This was interesting. A quick note about parent guilt. He said, excuse me, if the child is 18 or older, that person is responsible solely. If the child is under 18 but being charged as an adult, then the child is responsible solely. If the child is under 18 and not being charged as an adult, then the parent has some responsibility. That's what makes sense to me. I really appreciate what Kurt is saying, because this is interesting. You've got this 14-year-old, right, who is facing these charges, pretty serious situation, being tried as an adult. So why is the father in court? Right? That's, and I'm not saying the father shouldn't be in court, but if you're trying him as an adult, okay, you're an adult. We're going to treat you as an adult. You're 14 years old, barely 14 years old. We're going to treat you as an adult, but then we'll drag your father into court. That's where I get, how do you, maybe you have an easier time justifying that than I do. But Kurt is always one. I love Kurt's emails because he's always something to bring up. I think something, he looks at things in a way differently from me, and which is why I love hearing from all of you. I love your comments, your emails, those kinds of things, because all of you have a different way of looking at these very same issues and stories that we see happening. So I think I have shared just about. Let me take one last look and see if there is. Yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to share with you this morning. There was one other thing. This is an email that I received from the Life Defense Fund and what's going on. Now, this is South Dakota news. A group of South Dakota attorneys have come together to oppose Amendment G. That's the abortion amendment on the ballot this election. They say there are numerous lawyers who believe Amendment G is too radical. Well, look at the people who brought it. You know, Rick Wyland and that group. Yeah, I'm not surprised it's too radical. That's been a staple with Mr. Wyland. They also believe the language is dangerously vague from a legal standpoint. The constitutional amendment is not the best way to address changes to the law that citizens believe would be needed on this issue. And then Elise Rasmussen issued the following statement. After reading Amendment G's language, I was shocked at how extreme it was. Many people I've spoken to on both sides of the aisle were equally shocked to learn that it would allow up to birth abortion. As an attorney, I noted how broad the language is and realized that it would allow preborn children to be killed for nearly any reason through all 9 months. And this goes on. So if you want more information regarding that, that is, and I'm probably going to get in hot water here, honestly, with these social media platforms that I'm on for the language that I just shared with you regarding that. But this is what folks are saying, and that's the reality, I think, of situation that we face. So it'll be pretty fascinating to see what happens with that. I am very much a believer in life, and I have been for a long time. Even when I remember getting into a few pretty rough and tumble verbal battles with folks when I was in college. So back in my Democrat days, I've been a pro-lifer for as long as I can remember. I've always been in favor of life. And protecting the unborn just seems like a no-brainer to me. It always has. And those are the values I think that were instilled in me by my parents, you know. That's going to be a really big issue, I think, for our state moving forward. So again, I'm probably going to get docked. But probably going to get docked for some of the language that I just used there. And perhaps showing it on the screen, but I wanted you to know what's going on. So that continues to be a big issue, and more people are reacting to that. And as you hear these lawyers then who are responding about the language of this Amendment G, it really is kind of troubling. And again, I have not been a fan of Rick Wyland's. He is, and I just don't share his point of view. I'm not saying anything about him personally, that I don't like him or anything. He's a likable enough guy. It's his politics that I really find distasteful. And what's going on with this Amendment G, I understand why you've got more people in our state who are speaking up and pointing out, and lawyers in particular, who are pointing out, what the effects of that may be if voters in the state wind up passing it. So I wanted to share that with you this morning as well. And I think we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for letting me join you again this week. I hope you'll be back again next week. Have a wonderful weekend. I want to ask you, please, if I can trouble you, please hit the like button. Please tell one friend about what we're doing. If you've got a like-minded friend, I'm not looking for you to force it down anybody's throat, but if you've got like-minded friends, please let them know about me and what we're doing. And that would be very much appreciated, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube. Denise, I did notice your comment that Denise was saying she enjoys the YouTube experience more than the Facebook experience. So either one is good with me as long as you're here, Denise. I forgot something too. I got to mention this. I have got to give a shout out to Buffy, who Joe Bowman works here, and his mom her name is Buffy. And I come to understand, Buffy, that you're a fan of what we're doing and the fourth hour of the Greg Belfrage show, and that you have watched routinely. And Buffy, I just wanted to give you a shout out and say thank you so much. I've been meaning to do that for days. I've had Joe's email in front of me, but I've been meaning to do it for days and just have forgotten. So I didn't want to forget again today. So my thanks to all of you. I really do appreciate having all of you along. If you can bring one more person into the fold, it would be very much appreciated. So again, you have a wonderful weekend. Take care. So long until Monday, my friend. And maybe for those of you, a lot of you follow me on Facebook. Katie and I are going up later today to the Watertown area. There's a lake up near Watertown, and we get rent a state cabin. We have done this, I think, the last 3 or 4 years running in the fall, where we go up, or late summer, and we go up and just have a really wonderful weekend. Often we do it over the Labor Day weekend. This time we missed it. The cabin wasn't available, but it was available this weekend. So we're going up there. So for those of you who follow me on Facebook, watch for some photos or maybe a brief video from up in the Watertown area. So I'll be up there over the weekend and then back at it on Monday morning. So again, thank you so much. You take care. Have a wonderful weekend, and may God bless.